Welcome back. We're going to be wrapping up this rendering demo by introducing recessed and raised details. What are they? Well, they can be in the form of a grip. They can be in the function of a ventilation detail for cooling. There could also be raised graphics. It can also be recessed graphics. And also, there are a couple ways that you can add them onto your Photoshop rendering. You can hand draw them in, or you can bring in artwork from the outside. All right? So let me go ahead and get you started and show you how to do it. All right, first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and go down your layer menu, and you want to go to the very top surface of your object. Now, in this case, it's going to be the textured top cover, okay, because we want to make sure that we get our graphics front and center. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and on top of that, I'm going to introduce a new layer. Okay, so let's go ahead and rename that layer. We'll call it 1C, lack of a better term, and we'll just call this recessed detail. Okay. Now, the reason why we do that is you always want to make sure that you have a reserved layer for that particular detail. So if you don't like it or you want to hide it as far as showing that option, you have that flexibility. Okay. So let's go ahead and introduce a recessed detail. Now, what I'm going to do here, okay, is I'm going to go ahead and paint a object or a shape. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my color. I'm going to select a slightly darker gray so I can see it when I'm sketching. And I'm going to use a paintbrush, okay, to add that detail. I want to make sure it's a very hard brush so I can get some definition. And let's go ahead and reduce the size of our rib detail, okay? Oh, let's make him a little more visible for the demo. It's going to be hard to see. So what I'm going to do here before I start stroking those details, I'm going to locate them, but I also want to zoom in so you can kind of see how I'm creating them, okay? Now, it's on its own layer, so you don't have to worry about messing up anything previously. So what I'm going to imagine is that, well, you know, this looks like it's got a little bit of a soft edge, and I think that's probably where I'm going to probably want to have a user put their hands or their fingers. So I'm going to go ahead and use my mouse. I'm going to press down the left button, and I'm going to follow that contour, okay? Now, the rendering gives me a little bit of a guide here so I can see what I'm doing. I can follow the contour. Oops, kind of missed that one. Okay. All right. 5 are enough. All right. Now we have these 5 stroke details. Now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and introduce how we're going to make them recessed. All right. So here's how we're going to do it. First of all, what I want to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to maybe adjust the levels, the contrast levels of those 5 ribs so that they're not too dark. Okay. Now, I don't want them to be super deeply recessed. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this layer, which I just drew my recessed details, and I'm going to double click just to the right of it. Okay, you see where my pointer is right here on the name? I'm going to move my pointer here just to the right, and I'm going to double click that. Okay. Now, when you double click that, what happens? So, like you click on that box. Okay. You see bevel and boss. Let's go ahead and click on it. Whoa! Look what happened. Did you see that? I'm going to go ahead and click out of that so you can see what's going on. We're going to click that one more time. Whoa! Pretty cool, huh? So what we're going to do here is we need to fine-tune those recesses. So what I recommend you doing is just to the right of bevel and boss, you're going to click that once. And what that's going to do, it's going to give you some controls here, which allow you to choose the shape of the recess. Okay? You see? Pillow emboss is interesting. It's got a little rib going around it. Okay? But let's go and choose emboss. I think that's a pretty nice one. All right? And then what it's going to do, it's going to give you a choice of how you want to treat that. Do you want that to have a sharp edge? Do you want it to have a smooth edge or a soft edge? Okay? It really depends on your application. All right? And then what it's going to do is it allows you to then determine the depth, right? How deep do you want that to go into your surface of your plastic part or your metal part? And then it's also going to allow you to determine the size or the girth of it. You see how you can get a little thicker through the section. Now, there's going to be situations where it's going to start to kind of get a little bit out of control, so you want to kind of keep an eye on that. Okay, so Photoshop does have a tendency to know kind of what you're kind of after, and it kind of tries to keep you on the more appealing side of your rendering. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play around with the angle of the light. Okay. Now I want you to kind of click the Use Global Light on and off. Now sometimes that will kind of give you a more enhanced effect. Okay. And I'll get into gloss contours a little bit later, but for now we just want to kind of get across the basic idea of how to create a recess. Okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to hit OK. And then what you want to do here before you go too far, now you see where it's recessed and you see how the plastic is smooth? Well, let's take a look at how we can maybe put some grain back into the recess so it really looks like it's part of the molded plastic part. So what you go ahead and maybe add texture to that. So let's go ahead and maybe add a little noise to that layer. Okay. So let's go to Filter. Let's go to Noise. And I think that did it. Okay. Okay, see, I put a little more noise in there, and you start to see a textural change going on inside here. Okay, now the reason why it's so bright is probably because of the brightness. I may have to lower the brightness just a little bit, but I kind of like what's happening here with the noise. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make sure it's monochromatic. Yes, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and play around with the contrast levels. We may have to make that just a little bit darker. Let's see if that helps. No, don't think that helped any. Okay. All right. I think what it's done is it's because it's a pretty shallow recess, it's going to probably pick up a little more light. But then again, you can always go back into your controls. Okay. Double click on them. Okay. Again, don't forget you have to double click again inside so that you can play around with the effects. Okay. Yeah, I think I might change the effect on that. All right, enough already. All right, now one important thing before we close out this video is you have to contain these effects plus the layer together, or else they become separated. So if you ever make any changes on your rendering, you might possibly lose that. So what I recommend doing is go back to your main shape layer where it says main shape textural and open just a brand new layer. And just give it the same layer name. Okay, we'll just call that recess. Final. Okay. And what that does is it gives us an empty layer where we can go up to the layer recess that we created, and you right click and you go ahead and merge everything down into that layer, so it locks in the layer effect. So when you have to move that about, or if you decide not to show it, okay, it all goes together. It's stuck together. All right. So that's the layer effect. And let me see if I can maybe adjust some of the levels again. I'm not crazy about some of those contrast levels. Okay. All right. Now, if you need to go back in and tidy things up, you can always zoom in and take an eraser and just go in and make those changes. Okay. And let's say this one, this is the one that kind of got away from us. What you can always do is you can lasso select that. Okay. I'm just going to use my tool here, and I'm just going to use my free transform and see if I can rotate that so it looks a little nicer. Looks like it's more in perspective. And you see how that works, guys? I can make those changes on the rendering without disturbing what was done previously. So that's a really cool part. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and zoom out. Okay, so that's my demo for creating recess details in Photoshop. All right, so in my next video, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the complete opposite, which is a raise detail. And we're going to do that with both hand-drawn graphics and with imported graphics from my folder. Okay, so I'll be right back.